When was the worst time you overslept? I had about 2 hours to kill before a huge meeting with an important person, so I decided to take a short nap. I woke up about 8 hours later. That job didn't last long. I woke up with the alarm clock, hopped out of bed, showered, and headed to work. Walked into the office, cheerily greeted everyone with the usual good morning, then became aware that everyone was staring at me, including a very angry looking boss who demanded to know where I had been all morning. Turned out that my phone had, for no particular reason, changed the time by a couple of hours. It was only my genuine and completely obvious astonishment and ability to show the time on my phone that meant that I didn't get in trouble. I was so confused. Crap, all the iPhones did that one day and millions of people were late to work. Had something to do with daylight savings time, I think. Worked in the Navy, got cut away for the night to return the next day, only I didn't hear the last part. Got blackout drunk at a mate's house, slept through till about 1 o'clock. Ship went into emergency protocol for a missing person, notified the local police, hospitals and morgues, was deemed a missing person. Had my next of kin and landlord called, turned on my phone to about 40 missed calls and messages. Finally got back to the ship. Luckily the breathalyzer wasn't working that day. Holy crap, that escalated. It was my second year teaching. I had already started out with a crappy year. I had 3 separate subjects to teach in a middle school where everyone else taught one subject. My classes were terrible. I hated that year. My scores were crap, and I knew I was on the chopping block. Then it happened. I had a bad headache one night, and the only medicine I had was Tylenol PM. Being 7 o'clock at night, I thought I'd be fine to take 2, since I had more than 8 hours to sleep. Boy, was I wrong. I woke up the next day to my dogs going insane at the door of my apartment. My dad was outside screaming and knocking. I thought someone was dead, for sure. Then I realized it was 10 AM. Work started at 7. I wasn't just late, I was miserably, embarrassingly, and unforgivably late. You can brush off 30 minutes. 3 hours is a different story. When I came to my senses, I realized what had happened. Not only did I sleep through my alarm clock, but my phone was dead. Several of my co-workers had called me and I didn't respond. I was so embarrassed, but I had to call my boss. It was simple. I just explained the situation. As soon as she answered the phone, my adrenaline wore off and I started crying and apologizing and begging her not to fire me. Turns out there had been an accident on the highway that morning, and everyone was so relieved I wasn't dead they weren't even mad. The principal gave me the rest of the day off. I bought her really good cupcakes the next day. I did get made fun of forever after that, but I didn't get fired. Thank God for that horrible car accident. I literally got the $1,000 attendance incentive for making it the whole year. Then the very next day I slept in 3 hours and lost it for the whole next year. Well, think about it this way. If you had missed it the day before, you would have wasted a whole year on perfect attendance. I had a job where I had to be there at 5 AM most days and it was an hour away. I had the worst time trying to wake up pretty much every day. Luckily they didn't keep track and they knew I was good at my job, so they usually let it slide. I was supposed to get there on a Sunday one day. I woke up at 10 AM, slept right through my alarm, called my boss as I was getting ready and he said, "Oh, I didn't even know you were missing today. Well, I don't really need you, but you can come in if you want for a few hours." I didn't. I figured an hour drive there and then back wasn't worth 4 hours of work. I want your boss. A few years ago, I had a boyfriend who was really bad at waking up. He would sleep through his alarms regularly and miss classes and such. So, when he had to get up at 4 in the morning to catch a flight, I said I'd sleep over, set my alarm and wake him up. That's what I did. Only did I realize a little too late that when I changed the alarm from 4 o'clock to a little before 4, I forgot to change the hour. So the alarm was set at 4:50 instead of 3:50. He didn't miss his flight in the end, but dang, I felt bad. To be fair, if he can't wake his own butt up, it isn't your fault. Man, I woke up, noticed it was lighter than it should have been. Looked at the clock. It's 7:30 AM. I have to be at work at 8. It's a 45-minute drive and the boss said next time I'm late I'm gone. Crap. Jump out of bed. running around grabbing my stuff and getting dressed. Skip the toothbrushing. There'll be plenty of time off for that if I'm fired. Hop in the car and tear off like a bat out of heck. I'm doing probably 10-15 above the speed limit. Go to keep an eye out for cops. Then I realize there is way less traffic than usual. That's odd. At this point I'm 15 miles or so into my trip. Should I call the boss and give some half-butt excuse? No, he'll see through it. Frick, just try to keep this pace. Should be easy, there is barely any traffic. Where is everyone? Look at my watch. It's 7:50 am. Saturday morning. I don't work Saturdays. My underslept moment came in the form of jumping up at 4:45 am and only seeing the :45. I thought I'd overlaid and it was 6:45, so I bolted outside to the bus stop as fast as I could. 30 minutes of standing around until I realized the bus wasn't late and no bus went the opposite way, which indicated I was an hour early. Looked at the local shop and it was in darkness. FML. I got selected for the so-called honors program for excellent students in my first year of university. Lots of nice trips to several countries in Europe were about to happen, all paid for by school. I was doing a great job until the day I overslept and missed a, not even important, meeting with a teacher. They woke me up with a phone call and I got fired immediately. My sophomore or junior year of college. Can't remember which for sure. I worked full time, at least 40 but closer to 50 hours, and had 19 credit hours in the education major. This entailed lots of extra classroom observations and field trips in addition to regular coursework. I was super excited one random Wednesday morning to get the opportunity to sleep in because my first class was cancelled. It was only an extra 30-45 minutes, but it was nice. While driving to my second class, I passed an elementary school and realized in an instant that I had forgotten about a volunteering opportunity, required for class, that I had been volunteered to do at the last minute earlier in the week because my first class wasn't meeting during that time and they needed more people. Not only did I leave a class of 3rd graders without their career person, was supposed to help them with their practice interviews or something, I got called out by my professor during our next class. He made me stand up while he lectured me and everyone about commitments and then kicked me out of class until I returned with an apology letter that I had to read out loud. He then kicked me out again because my excuse was that I just plain forgot, that my schedule was super crazy, and it was unlike me to do anything like this, ever. He almost flunked me, too, but I saw that coming and got other staff to intervene. Walked in my sleep to the living room, sat in the sofa and kept on sleeping there. Didn't hear the alarm because the clock was in my room. Only woke when my boss rang to find out why I was an hour and a half late for work. That was one confusing morning. Something similar has happened to me many times, although the brightness outside was able to wake me up on time. Was working on a puppet show at this theater with a raging hangover. After having gone straight into work from a party the night before, I was in the booth for 3 performances that day, with only one pyro cue to operate. Big reveal at the end of the show, featuring a wizard puppet. Felt like crap during the first 2 shows, then decided to lie on the floor of the booth during the third. Promptly fell asleep, missed the cue, then was woken by someone banging on the door of the booth. Show was over. Audience and angry puppet company had all left and this was the caretaker wanting to lock up. Had some explaining to do to the boss the next day. Sorry man, this is hilarious. Agreed to help someone move. Rolled over on top of my phone and the alarm was muffled. I'm a heavy sleeper, so if nothing is said to wake me up, I can easily sleep 14 hours, which is exactly what I did. He still doesn't speak to me. I suffered from depression and general lethargy in my first few years of college, and couldn't build up the will to do much of anything. At one point, my friends had to call and Ra to open my room and make sure I was still alive, because I'd slept something like 23 hours straight. My college boyfriend was like this. He would sleep through dates and classes and I literally would not hear from him for days because he was just sleeping. At the time it made me mad and led to a lot of fights, but now I understand how big of an issue it was. My boss asked me to pick her up from the train after she stayed overnight in Chicago for a meeting. I end up waking up to 15 missed calls with the last voicemail telling me she got an Uber and don't bother coming into work that day. Just went back to sleep. Attaboy. I'll never forget my first grade 9 exam. I took a bus to my school and I was frequently late or just absent altogether. So I was really worried I would sleep in and miss an exam. That day, I wake up and look at the clock. It's like 1 o'clock. Exam started at 8:30. I started freaking out and getting ready as quick as possible until I realized the exam would have been well over. So there was nothing to do. I laid back down, defeated. Then I decided to call my dad and tell him about his disappointment of a son. That's when I heard his phone start ringing in the house while he was supposed to be at work. But then it finally dawned on me. I went to the living room, looked out our tiny bus window, basement apartment, and it was still pitch black. It was 1 AM. Doesn't really count, but still. I woke up one morning quite hungover. I looked at my alarm clock and saw it was 10:40 AM. Why did I drink last night? And I practically threw myself out the bed thinking I start work at 9, then to only realize it was Sunday and not Monday. I love happy endings. I spent all night working on a paper that was due at 9 AM. I finished around 6 and decided to just sleep an hour or two because no sleep is pretty bad on my system. Ended up sleeping through my class and never was able to turn in my paper. Chem lab write-ups had to be dropped off in a lockbox. I turned a couple in at 3 AM, so it didn't matter if I overslept. Overslept and missed a final exam in university. Rushed to school and made up a bull's story about how my girlfriend thought she was pregnant and was freaking out. Professor let me take the exam by myself in his office and managed to pass the class. Same, but I was really sick. She seemed like she thought it was an excuse until I came in looking like heck. She refused to take my note. I was the only breakfast chef. Had worked the night shift before, so had very little sleep. Had to get hot and cold food buffet out for 170 sleepers starting at 6:30. I woke at 6:15 because I'd ignored my alarms. Luckily I was staying in the hotel. The worst was when I had a 10 AM Saturday wedding, for which I was organist. The power had gone off the night before, so my alarm clock was off schedule and I overslept. When the phone rang, it was the minister, playing Get Me to the Church on Time from the musical My Fair Lady. Fortunately, he knew the power had been off and said he'd delay the wedding until I arrived. Even the couple understood and gave me a bonus afterwards for racing to the church without coffee, breakfast or shower to play Here Comes the Bride. Comrie was the minister, playing Get Me to the Church on Time from the musical My Fair Lady. Coolest minister ever. Was in Afghanistan on a convoy augmented in with the army. I am a marine. We get to a free on board and my task was to repair a trailer and load up a Mach 50 crane. A bunch of stupid little logistical problems come up all night, not having the right fitting, flat tires, occasional gunfire, so it was a long night. Zero sleep for me. Sun finally comes up and I'm in an LVSR waiting for the army to get loaded up and leave. I nod off in the passenger seat and wake up because I have to pee. I step outside to learn I just slept through one of the most kinetic firefights I probably would have ever seen. Oh well, no casualties on our side, at least, and I got done resting for the long drive home. That's freaking insane. I fell asleep during a NASCAR race once. I had my last, the most important exam in high school. If you don't pass, you don't graduate. So I totally overslept. Put on any jeans I grabbed and an old sweater. Didn't brush my teeth or my hair. Didn't put any makeup on. Then rushed to high school pretty fast. I was the last one to enter. So you can imagine the look on everyone's faces when they saw me. Yup, wasn't pleasant. But hey, I'm a nurse now. I was working 2 jobs. Got home at 5:30, had an hour to nap before my second job, woke up 9 o'clock the next day, late for job 1. I was pretty much always tired. Was heading into London for the first time with friends going to MCM, woke up 2 hours late. Friends left without me, so I had to travel there solo to meet them. Got into King's Cross confused as frick how a tube works. Saw a group of cosplayers, assumed they were headed to the same place, so asked for help getting there. Made friends while traveling, then didn't see them again while there. Got home and tried to get in touch with them on the web. Ended up getting a message from one. 5 years later we have a flat and a cat who wakes me up by jumping off the wardrobe onto my dong. I'm stuck with it. I had lost my phone the night before and had a flight at 7 am. It was important that I caught this particular flight because I was cackling a 5-hour ride from a friend as soon as I landed. I had to use my roommate's iPad as an alarm. It didn't go off, but I luckily woke up with a minuscule chance of catching my flight. I had to call an Uber with my roommate's iPad. I was originally planning on taking the train to the airport and then hoped to find the Uber outside because I couldn't leave the apartment with the iPad. I got to the airport 7 minutes before my gate closed. I sprinted through the terminal. I got to the gate as the door was closing, but the dickhead of Delta Airlines didn't let me in. Frick Delta. I work graveyard shift, so I usually go in at 11 PM. When I went to sleep before then, I forgot to turn my alarm on, so when I woke up it was almost 2 o'clock. My phone was in the other because my mom used it for something, so I didn't hear my coworker texting me. Worst part is there was a moment when I woke up and thought, well, the alarm didn't go off yet, and went back to sleep. If I just rolled over and looked at the time, I probably would have caught it. Thankfully they weren't suffering too much without me and I didn't get in trouble. When I was a barista, my work hours were all over the place. Sometimes I had to be in at 4 am, other days 7 am, other days 2 pm, 4:30 pm. You get the picture. I often had to do the dreaded clop and close store at 7 pm, open store next day at 4 am. My sleep schedule got all fakakta. One day, I woke up at 3 pm and freaked out because I was supposed to be at work at 2:30 pm. I bolted there, rushing and apologizing profusely to my supervisor. She looks at me, amused. She says, "Hon, you already did your shift today. You opened today." I had worked that day from, 4 am to 9 am. Went home, went to bed, woke up at 3 pm. And in my sleep disorder delirium thought it was a totally different day. No harm, no foul, I guess, but it really sucks to have your sleep schedule be all over the place. It messes with your mind. I once overslept on the red line and ended up all the way at Howard while I was 2 hours late to work. I then proceeded to go back south to my stop only to fall asleep again and end up at 95th. Took a nap so I'd be energized for my dad's 50th birthday dinner. I was the MC. I was giving the speech. I was driving my parents to the restaurant. I needed the boost. Woke up at 2 am. NBA Finals 2006. I took a nap like an hour before the final game and ended up sleeping through it. My phone ringing off the hook with people telling me the Heat won the championship. I was furious that I missed our first title game. Dude, spoiler alert. My friend wanted me to help him paint his kitchen. Fell asleep on his couch and bless him he didn't wake me up until he had finished the whole job. Michelangelo, meatloaf and veggies in oven. Was at the Girl Scouts, went out camping and I was supposed to do the 2 am to 5 am guarding shift. I slept through it and was woken up by a cow eating our stuff. Chaos ensued and was denied my camping badge for a while. First job out of college was directing the morning newscast for a small market TV station. My schedule was to arrive at 5 am and go live by 6. I would then finish the day around 2 pm. One winter day I arrive home and crash out. I wake up, it's dark out and my clock reads 5:45. I panic. Luckily I live a block from the station. Book it there. Enter the building to see the 6 pm anchor looking at my like, WTF. He looks at the clock and laughs at me knowing exactly what happened. Got kicked out of my internship because it was a shithole and I slacked doing boring things, cleaning up the basement etc. I was on Reddit more than I should have been, so it was my fault mostly. They kicked me out but I still needed to get graded regardless. So with a lot of convincing, the boss scheduled a meeting with me at 10 am. I went to bed at a normal time. Woke up at exactly 11 am. Don't know why I turned off my alarm and went back to sleep. Called the guy and made up some bull's excuse. He said that was the last straw and I never saw him again. Everything turned out fine in the end, but boy was that bad. This past weekend I was supposed to go camping with some friends on Saturday, just for one day. Friday night I'm out driving because I drive for Uber and Friday nights I make decent money, so I was out until about 3 am. Well, I overslept by an hour Saturday morning and missed all of the phone calls and texts. Everyone left without me. My camping gear is still sitting next to the front door. I still feel like crap. Was sick a few months ago. Had a nap in the afternoon. Was being woken up by my phone ringing. How annoying. Kept sliding the screen to reject the call. Finally, one of the calls got into my head. I answered it. It was my children's school. I'd forgotten to pick them up an hour ago. Whoops. Freshman year, 8 AM physics test. I woke up an hour late, put on a sweater and gym shorts. Shorts turned out to be backward, and ran out to class. It was pouring down rain. Get to class and it's completely dark because everyone has left. Luckily professor was just about to leave. He saw the desperation in my face and let me take the tests in his office. Aced it. One of my favorite teachers. Turns out he told his other lecturers the story, anonymously, and added in that I was crying and bawling in order to let him take it. WTF Mayo. Sometimes you gotta take that shame in stride lol. He let you take it, he can tell his version of the story. I slept through an exam for college. I needed that exam to pass the course. My alarm did not go off and I completely missed the entire thing. 3 months of summer school and extra costs I wasn't planning on. I went out and bought an actual alarm clock after that and stopped relying on my cell phone. Went out on Friday night. Had a big one. Figured I'd have a nap before heading out Saturday night. Missed LTJ Buchan because I slept straight through to Sunday. Balls. Seen him twice. So good. This story makes my brother laugh every time. Okay, so back when I was 17, I had forgotten I was supposed to wake up at 6 AM to go babysit a friend of the family's son for the day. So I went out to drink and smoke pot with some friends and came back around 2 AM. Couldn't sleep so I played video games until 4:30 AM. And passed out on the couch in the basement as I often did. 6 AM turns up. My mom wakes me up. I shower, brush my teeth and walk over to Buddy's place. He tells me I can nap until the kid wakes up. See, now the kid was like 10 and was best friends with my brother. So around 9 AM the kid wakes up. Around 11 AM my brother shows up to go play with the kid. Around 4 PM they ask me if they can eat food. Around 7 PM the dad is freaking shoving me awake. I slept the entire day. Holy frick. Where are the kids? I have no idea. Turns out, they were in the forest with a jerrycan full of gas and a lighter. LOL. Whoops. My brother remembers this story and says that they ate an entire box of those popsicles with gummy bugs in them. They made grilled cheeses for lunch, very quietly so I didn't wake up. They did a bunch of stupid crap all day because I had no supervision. They had a freaking awesome time and didn't start a forest fire. I don't think. After waking me up, he gives me crap and tells me to get the frick out of his house. And I groggily think to myself, well, that was bad. When I got home my mom was waiting for me and was not impressed. Had an interview at my first real job. Started at $17 an hour. Dang good for a 18-year-old. Interview at 8 AM. At 9:30 AM my wife and I both woke up, noticed the clock, and screamed. I was out of the house in 3 minutes. Somehow, I got the job. Still work at that company and I'm thankful every day. Looking back it's still not funny. Had a college class final exam. Slept through my alarm by a full hour and missed it. However, the second section of the class was immediately after the first. I went to the second section and noticed that the pile of exams from the first class was in a neat pile on the desk at the front of the lecture hall of about 250 kids. I take the exam, which fortunately turned out to be the same test as the first sections, and I walk down to the front. The teacher is talking to another student so I take my exam, pick up half the pile of tests from the first class, and stick my exam in the pile. She looks over and immediately asks me what I'm doing. I explained very politely that I missed the first section that I'm actually in, and took my exam and turned it in just now. She asked me what my name was, clearly not okay with what I was doing. I smile, gave her a made up name on the spot, said have a great holiday and walked out. A in the class. Victory was mine. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.